This special edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Tisch WNET studios at Lincoln Center. Funding has been provided by Holy Name Medical Center. This place is different. The Russell Berrie Foundation, making a difference. New Jersey Sharing Network, dedicated to saving lives through organ and tissue donation. New Jersey Resources. Delta Dental of New Jersey. Everyone deserves a healthy smile. United Airlines. Adler Aphasia Center, offering therapeutic programming for stroke and brain injury survivors with aphasia. And by Berkeley College. Education prepares us to reach our dreams. Be inspired. Promotional support provided by the New Jersey Business and Industry Association. And by New Jersey Monthly, the magazine of the Garden State, available at newsstands.
This is One-on-One. I'm an equal American just like you are.
The jobs of tomorrow are not the jobs of yesterday.
Look at this. You got this?
Here it is, man. Look at that.
Life without dance is boring.
I don't care how good you are or how good you think you are, there is always something to learn.
Do you enjoy talking politics?
No.
People call me because they feel nobody's paying attention.
Our culture, I don't think, has ever been tested the way it's being tested right now.
Such a good question. High five.
I'm Steve Adubato. This is the Tisch WNET studio here in the heart of Lincoln Center, New York City. Everything you ever wanted or needed to know as an American citizen about the impeachment process, you're about to find out. That's a lot of pressure. So. This is Nick Akerman, partner at Dorsey and Whitney, but also former Watergate prosecutor who understands more about this impeachment process than anyone. We are taping early in December. We're not a news program. We're a program that likes to put things into context. Do this for us. We don't know how the House is going to vote. We could assume. We don't know what the Senate's going to do. We can assume. Bigger picture, what are the implications of this impeachment process if it plays out the way I just described?
Well, obviously, this is an extremely important process, but you have to look at it in terms of the bigger historical picture, starting back with Andrew Johnson in the late 1860s. Basically, that was written up in John F. Kennedy's book, Profiles in Courage. And the one Republican senator there who wound up casting the vote that sort of nullified the impeachment.
Make it clear, you need 2/3 of the vote in the Senate to impeach.
That's right.
And they were one vote short?
One vote. He took away the one vote from the 2/3 that meant that Andrew Johnson was not removed from office. And the principle he based that upon was that he felt that it was just a political difference, that what Johnson did not undermine the Constitution, did not undermine the U.S. government. It was a policy difference. And now I think and certainly if you go on to the other impeachments you've got after that, the next one that comes up is Nixon.
Yes.
Now that was a whole different story. This is another president who essentially cheated in getting himself elected by having a bunch of burglars break into the Watergate complex, Democratic headquarters, steal documents. He misused his office in a whole series of different ways.
Sound familiar to you?
Yeah, I mean, this now is really what we had here was a high-tech burglary where the Russians essentially hacked into the Democratic National Committee. They didn't have to use burglars. But putting it in the bigger picture of what Trump is actually accused of in this situation, it really comes down to an extortion bribery scheme, where essentially what he has done is taken $399 million in aid that was
approved by Congress.
Approved by Congress.
Taxpayer dollars.
Right, to defend the Ukrainian government against an active, ongoing fighting war where the Russians are basically killing Ukrainians and trying to take over that country. And what Donald Trump did was use that money as leverage to get the president of Ukraine to announce that he was opening an investigation, one, into Donald Trump's chief political rival, Joe Biden.
As we do this program, we don't know what's going to happen in the campaign. Go ahead.
Yeah, we don't know. But
the assumption...
But assumption at the time was this was his chief political rival.
And whether Biden becomes a nominee or not, irrelevant?
Totally irrelevant.
From a legal and from a impeachment process point of view?
Totally irrelevant.
Go ahead.
Totally irrelevant. And the other thing he was trying to do was get an announcement of an investigation that the Ukrainian government was investigating this
company, Burisma, where, in fact, Biden's son was a board member. I don't know how he was making $50,000 a month. That's not relevant to this case?
Not at all.
Go ahead.
Not at all. Because there's no proof that Joe Biden or his son did anything that was wrong. I mean, it may have been, didn't look good, but nothing that was wrong. The other thing he was trying to get an announcement of was an investigation into this debunked conspiracy theory that it was the Ukrainian government, not the Russian government, that hacked into the Democratic National Committee.
Debunked not in the minds of a whole range of Republicans in Congress and American citizens who still are very supportive of President Trump and believe Russians, Ukrainians. What's the difference? They're all involved in it.
You can believe in the tooth fairy, too. But the fact is, nobody has come forward with any hard evidence that there's any truth to it. In fact, there are 10 Russians, or maybe 12 Russians, who've been indicted by a federal grand jury in Washington, D.C. for hacking into the Democratic National Committee. And all 17, 18 national intelligence agencies all come out saying it was Russia that hacked in, not the Ukraine.
By the way, I was listening on the audio side, Nick Akerman, Watergate prosecutor, also a commentator on a whole range of national networks on this. We're glad to have him here. Question. To put this in context, I tell you, we do analysis. We tried to provide context. Right. So this could be seen later on in 2020. How do you see, Nick, the role of the media? The media different in the early, mid-'70s when you were involved in the Watergate situation, as opposed to right now. There was no social media.
Right. It was really just 3 networks. Everybody got their news sitting around watching Walter Cronkite or one of the other 2 big networks.
So here's the thing. How much different is the, quote, impeachment process today, 2020, with all the media landscape what it is, the digital world that we're living in, social media being so dominant, as opposed to 1973-4 during Watergate?
Yeah, it's completely different. I mean, just as you described it, because you've got all these disparate sources that people are getting. A lot of them are partisan sources that just sort of spew one viewpoint or make up facts. I mean, that's part of the problem, is that a lot of these facts are just made up that are out there on these different networks and on these different social media sites. I mean, that was part of the problem in the 2016 election, that you had the Russians interfering to the extent of providing false information, such as this idea that Hillary Clinton had some kind of a child porn ring going at a pizza parlor.
Does Facebook have more responsibility than Mark Zuckerman says they have to be monitoring what's going on there? He's not the only one.
Absolutely. And he's not the, you're right, he's not the only one. Exactly.
There's just a prominent one.
All right, exactly.
Mark Zuckerberg, I'm sorry, Mark Zuckerberg, my bad.
But even on social media, I mean, if you're going to put an ad on TV, the person who's responsible for that ad has to get on and say, I'm responsible for this ad, I back it up. The problem is you didn't see any of these ads with Vladimir Putin saying that, you know, I approve of this message and I'm responsible for it. You didn't see that. It made it look as though it came from ordinary Americans.
Nick, let's assume, you see this in March, February, April, et cetera. Let's assume the House votes to impeach. The Senate, it doesn't happen because the votes aren't there for it. The Republicans control it. Let's assume, how do we move forward from this as the republic that we are in a healthy, productive way to deal with the issues we have to deal with in Washington and in this nation? Loaded question, I know.
Well, you've got 2 sets of issues. First, you've got this whole set of issue about Trump's criminal activity. If the jury of the Senate doesn't convict and
let's say they don't,
then it's up to the people and the electorate to do it. So this is going to be an issue that will be fought out with the entire jury being, the jury pool being the entire United States.
How about if a significant part of the American public says, you know what, an issue, not the issue?
Well, it's obviously not going to be the issue. There'll be a number of issues. Healthcare is going to be high up there. Jobs is going to be high up there. But this will clearly be an issue.
And if Donald Trump, sorry to interrupt, if Donald Trump were to win, you're not here to do political prognostication.
But I could try.
But here's my thing.
Right.
Say he wins. And a significant number of really smart political analysts believe that. If he does, what message do you believe it sends, Nick Akerman, about the impeachment process, the rule of law, loaded question, and the future of the presidency?
Well, I think the real question is the rule of law. I mean, it sends the message that a president can go out and recruit foreign governments to help him in his election campaign, whether it's an election campaign or a re-election campaign. And that's what's really dangerous here, because the rule of law hangs in the balance on this next election.
You worried?
Yeah, absolutely, because we just don't know how it's going to come out at this point.
The Nixon situation, I don't want to open up the Pandora's box. Nick Akerman, research and Google him. He was a key player in the Nixon impeachment proceedings. By the way, if you also go on our website, steveadubato.org, I'll tell you this before we get on the air. Look up Congressman Peter Rodino, R-O-D-I-N-O. He chaired the House Judiciary Committee hearings. Our longtime director, Bob Morris, knows how many times we interviewed him. He was a key player in this.
Right.
Put what's going on today in context, what was happening in the early 70s with the impeachment process. Nick, I want to thank you for joining us.
Okay, well, thank you.
All the best.
Yep, it's great to be here. Thank you.
To watch more One-on-One with Steve Adubato, find us online and follow us on social media.
The young man you see on camera is Daniel J. Watts. He plays Ike Turner in Tina, the Tina Turner musical at the Lumpfontaine Theater on West 46th Street. How you doing?
Great. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Describe this play for us. Some people think they know the story. Set it up for us.
The story of Anna Mae Bullock, who grew up in Nutbush, Tennessee. She moves to St. Louis, where she meets Ike Turner for the first time, who is this rock and roll impresario who is trying to figure out his thing. He had a whole life and career before he even met Anna Mae, who he changed her name to Tina Turner, found that she was a star that was actually brighter than him. And they created this new sound, this funky, raw, gritty live show. But what was going on behind, going on off stage was a lot darker, a lot colder. Ike was dealing with a lot of demons that he never figured out. 16 years later, Tina finally did what she knew she should have done a long time ago and finally left him. She moves to Vegas, where most singers go to die, and Roger Davies found her down there and took her to Europe, gave her What's Love Got to Do With It, and then she took that and...
Rest is history.
Rest is history.
So you knew about, as young as you are, it didn't take much to find out about what was said about Ike.
Sure.
Any reluctance to take this role?
Of course.
Based on what?
All the reluctance. Ike isn't a fun villain. You know, Ike is... He's not a fun villain.
There are some villains who are fun. He's not one of them.
Yeah, he's not like the Joker or, you know, Cruella de Vil. Everyone's coming in with the arms folded. They know what this man did to a woman who we all hold very, very dear. And that's fair. You know, I think that's a fair assessment. So kind of fearing that people wouldn't be able to disassociate myself from the role was a fear of mine.
That's legitimate.
Yeah.
For you to do that. How hard has it been to be such a mean and complicated character with those demons? Because you seem awfully well adjusted.
I'm okay. Ike is a person who grew up in the Confederate South, you know, as a black man. His music was taken from him when he was 19. He's considered the creator of rock and roll, but he was never given credit for that until years and years later. I think he was always chasing that credit, that acknowledgement. One of his wives he's been married a couple times. One of his wives was taken from him by her parents and put in an insane asylum. And allegedly he was molested as a child. Father was killed by a mob for talking to a white woman. All of this happened to him.
That nobody knows.
And nobody really knows, you know. And, you know, it's, you know, people hold stuff in. That's a lot of shame to carry around. And I think that's what happened, is that he just kept carrying. He never let go of that shame.
I'm curious about this. You said, we were talking before you got on the air, you grew up where?
Indian Trail, North Carolina.
So you come up to New York, you said 13 years ago.
Yep.
You got a big palatial apartment that you're paying big. You came up, you didn't even have really a place, you had a place to stay, but it was with a friend.
Yeah.
And you have a job, but it's not in the city.
Correct.
Why New York?
I visited New York my senior year in high school, and I got here, got off the plane, got to my hotel, went walking down the street, and this guy on a bike almost ran me over. And it was like, yeah, I like this.
That was it?
That was it. Was
oh, come on.
It was just the speed of it. You know, I'm from Indian Trail. Everything's very, you know, slow moving. And it was something about it. There's this energy here that said go, 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 go.
And it fit your personality.
It fit my personality.
So let's go through some of the other performances. Hamilton. Great experience.
Yeah, incredible. Crazy. I mean, it's one of those things that's hard to explain. Like Hamilton, I'll give you both sides of it.
Go ahead.
Hamilton is, you know, we knew that it was going to be big. We didn't know it was going to be this big, but we knew this was going to change the face of the American musical theater. And it was also a lot of work went into it. You know, it's a 3-hour show by itself. So just the work to get it to 3 hours, you know, you have to chop that down to 3 hours. And everyone's coming. This the room where it happens. This club that nobody really knows what's in it unless you're inside of it. And sometimes it felt like working at Disney World. Like everyone's coming, having a great time, but you're working at Disney World. Like I don't get to ride the rides. I'm just, you know, here. But you know, Prince is coming by, and then Prince will throw a party and DJ his hits. You know, Barack Obama's swinging through today.
Just hanging out, just going to see Hamilton.
Yeah, you know, it was.
And you know they're there.
We know they're there.
And
so it just, and everyone knows they're there. So this is energy, you know.
Can I do a couple other credits?
Sure.
So in addition to Hamilton, we're talking about In the Heights, Memphis. Is this really your ninth? No. Georgette, that can't be right. You haven't done 9 plays. 9.
Yeah.
You belong on Broadway.
Yes.
Movies appeal to you?
Of course, yes. I like to be able to go back and forth has always been the dream, TV and film.
Real quick, tell me the jam is?
The jam is based on my great-grandmother who used to make jam from scratch. You can't make it a jar at a time, you have to make it in bulk. So she makes some for herself and give the rest away. So I've been writing stuff since I was 12, 13, and it started to accumulate. And over time, I realized I should share it as well. I got a band together. I tap dance as well. I would do some of my spoken word, some of my poetry, some of my raps to music, and over time it's evolved into this thing, the jam. Most recent one is called Only Child, which is actually stripped everything away. It's just me and a DJ, and it's kind of just telling my story of how I started going to therapy and realized that I've been holding on to a lot of things similar to Ike Turner that I needed to learn how to let go.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
You're an awfully creative young man who has a lot of important things going on, and I have a feeling the contribution you're going to make to all of us is going to be even greater. I look forward to coming to see the show.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate it.
This is Daniel J. Watts, Ike Turner, and Tina. Tina the musical at the L'Enfantin Theater on 205 West 46th Street. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. This is Steve Adubato. Good stuff. We'll be right back right after this. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, brother.
To watch more one-on-one with Steve Adubato, find us online and follow us on social media.
We are pleased to welcome Jennifer McLean. She's Chief Operating Officer of City Harvest. Good to see you.
Hi, good to see you guys also.
Tell everyone what City Harvest is.
City Harvest is a food rescue. So our job is really finding food that would otherwise go to waste in the city and beyond the city and getting it on people's plates of people in need in New York City.
How bad is the problem? We've interviewed some of your counterparts on the Jersey side of the river. They talked to us about how serious it is. How many people are, quote unquote, food insecure?
Yeah, 1.2 million New Yorkers are food insecure. And that just means I'm not actually sure I'm going to be able to feed my family this week, myself this week. I'm worried about having enough food.
How many of them are children?
There's about 400,000 that are kids.
What?
Yeah. Food insecure. So a lot of these households in New York City, it's really an issue of not having enough money to make ends meet. If you think about food, food is an elastic expense. So if you have to pay your rent, you have to pay medical bills, you got to pay transportation, daycare, whatever your challenges and your payments are, food is elastic. So if you're able to hold back for yourself or skip meals, you know, your kids are getting fed at school, which is great in New York City and other cities. But if you have to hold back, you can hold back a little bit on food. You can skip meals. A lot of parents will skip meals themselves to make sure the kids have food. So we want to alleviate that. So we're saying there's all this extra food in New York City, in the country. How do we redirect that with logistics, trucking? So we provide that service, pick up that food and make sure it gets on people's plates tonight, usually.
So we put up the website right now.
Yeah.
Here's my question. Jennifer, how can people help?
There's lots of ways they can help. First off, just understanding what is hunger. I think people have a perception of what hunger looks like in their city. It's people that are working, it's people that are holding down a few jobs. It's the hardest working people because they're trying to make it all work for themselves and their family. So understanding and having empathy for the people around them that might not be making enough money to feed themselves and their family. Donating to places like City Harvest and whatever's in your community that's working for the cause of feeding people. Food is a right. You can't live without it. And then policies. If you can chime in and help an administration not cut the SNAP program, which is formerly food stamps.
Whoa, back up.
Yep.
Talking about federal policies.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So help us understand, people hear the SNAP program, which stands for?
It's the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, formerly food stamps.
A federal program.
Yes.
The Trump administration, what is their policy vis-a-vis the SNAP program?
Yeah, so they're working to reduce the spend in the SNAP program, trying to take away inefficiencies. What we see is that the SNAP program already is tight, and if you take food out of people's mouths, it's like, why would you cut in that spot? The SNAP program provides just enough for people to get food on their tables for themselves and their family. And so a cut where, say, if the administration might feel, if you're able-bodied, you should definitely be able to find a job. But what we don't, when I said earlier, the empathy, having empathy for people that are in these situations, maybe there's a disability and the reason they can't get to work. Maybe they're having another challenge, an illness that you don't know about, or a job that's not giving them the hours. So people are trying to piece this stuff together in their lives, and why take food away? You can't live without it. And so in our minds, we want SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, rides alongside what places like City Harvest do to provide more meals. You take that food stamp and you go to the grocery store, and now you're providing for your family on top of our free food that we distribute.
So, Jennifer, do this for us. We do a lot of programming around healthcare, health-related issues. And there are people in hospital community, healthcare community, that often talk about hunger / poverty as a, you know where I'm going, a social determinant of health. Take it away from the jargon and make it real.
Sure. So if you imagine you get your food stamp dollars early in the month. As the month wears on, you're running out of dollars for the grocery store. So you're going to food pantries and soup kitchens to make sure you can feed your family. When people are in high need and they start supplementing, not having enough food, people with diabetes or other issues skyrocket. So emergency rooms say that they see a skyrocket at the end of the month when people are running out of their SNAP dollars and they're running out of food, and so you're supplementing with whatever you can make work. And because the up and down for people drives them, if you're already dealing with diabetes or health issues, at the end of the month, when your dollars run out, you're heading to the hospital, to the ER. And it's known all over the country that that's happening in ERs. And what we're really working with hospitals is to start doing food security screenings.
Food security
screening. So you might, if you're a patient at your doctor's office or at your hospital, you're asking, have you had to skip a meal this week or this month? Are you worried about providing? And so you ask some questions.
Right.
And if people are saying, yeah, that's me, they can help direct them. Here's a food pantry. What's your zip code? Let's get you to where you can get a food pantry. You can get free food in your area. And City Harvest, we focus a lot on fresh produce. So we want healthy food for people. If you're going to be, already struggling to feed your family, let's get you a lot of fresh produce so you can feed your family in a healthy way.
You mentioned empathy. I think about this concept and the reality of empathy a lot. And I'm not going to get into a philosophical conversation with you, but I am curious. Do you think most people watching this right now, listening to you talk about food insecurity, hunger, its connection to people's health, the quality of their life, do you think the vast majority of people are asking themselves, how can I help? That's not me, but I want to empathize with others. Or, not that you have a scientific survey for this, but the vast majority of people are saying, it's kind of too bad, but it's not me. It's kind of tough. I got to hang on to what I got to have. I don't even have that much myself.
My experience, I've been in City Harvest 20 years, and I've been in New York now 22 years. For here in this city, I can speak here, and also, other places around the country I've experienced, people want to help. They don't.
People want to help.
They definitely want to help.
Even if they're struggling a bit on their own.
Some of our biggest food drive schools are in the poorest neighborhoods in New York City.
What?
Yes, because they've been there. They get it. So, if I have, I'm going to give. And if I don't have, people have donated to City Harvest, given a check to us and said, I'm giving you a check this month. Last year, I needed your services, and I'm so glad I don't now. Whatever, $20 checks, $15 checks. So I do think the empathy is there. I just don't think people know. I think people might think it's homeless. It's what I see on the street, and that is for sure. But 1.2 million, there's not 1.2 million homeless in New York City.
Yeah.
They're like 60,000. So 1.2 million, those are people that have jobs that are working, that may be sharing housing with somebody, maybe 4 people, 5 different families in a house.
Right. And by the way, that's by going to your website, Jennifer Matters, because they can do something. You navigate, help them navigate, right?
Yes, help them find food right now in the city. So if you need food, you can go to our website and you can log on, and we have a link that takes you right to the food map in New York City where you can find a pantry or a kitchen, sign up for SNAP benefits.
And also, if they want to help, they can contribute.
Yeah.
They can
volunteer.
They can.
They can contribute money. They can run a food drive, and they can chime in on policy stuff with City Harvest.
Jennifer McLean is Chief Operating Officer at City Harvest. Been around for how long?
1982.
It's a great organization doing important work. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Stay right there. Don't go anywhere.
Okay.
This is One-on-One. I'm Steve Adubato. This is the Tisch WNET studio right here in Lincoln Center. Catch you next time.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the CAUCUS Educational Corporation. This special edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Tisch WNET studios at Lincoln Center. Funding has been provided by Holy Name Medical Center, the Russell Berrie Foundation, New Jersey Sharing Network, New Jersey Resources, Delta Dental of New Jersey, United Airlines, Adler Aphasia Center, and by Berkeley College. Promotional support provided by the New Jersey Business and Industry Association and by New Jersey Monthly. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.
Hi, I'm Elise Glennon. New Jersey Sharing Network is committed to saving lives through organ and tissue donation. We are proud to announce that the Transplant Games of America will come to New Jersey in July of 2020. This 6-day festival will raise awareness about the need for organ, eye, and tissue donation and bring together families and individuals impacted by the gift of life. To find out more about how you can be a competitor, a volunteer, or a corporate partner, visit njsharingnetwork.org. Let the games begin.